All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Arts, Media, and Entertainment, one of our CAELI Green Career webinars from our series. We're hoping to have about an hour and a half of your time and have some wonderful speakers, but we'll jump on into introductions on the next slide. All right. For all those who don't know me, my name is Cidia Salas. I'm a program manager at the Energy Coalition and have been participating with CAELI specifically in the Green Career Initiative for about a year and a half now. And I'll throw it over to Sarah and Liz to introduce themselves as our co-moderators. And then we'll again encourage anybody who's joining and jumping on board, please introduce yourself in the chat, tell us your name, where you're from, and a little fun fact about yourself if you like. Sarah, I'll throw it to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Whiting. I'm the Director of Data Science and Client Engagement for 10 Strands, and we provide backbone support for the California Environmental Literacy Initiative, or CAELI, and I specifically support with the Green Career work. As a former K-12 Strong Workforce Pathway Coordinator, I am super engaged in trying to bring more green career awareness into our schools and help students see those clear paths to those careers. And Liz.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Christie. I'm the Education Program Manager at the U.S. Green Building Council, California, and we are the industry partner connection, or one of many. So we do some professional development for all ages and now for teachers. So we're really hoping to connect the industry side to this conversation and make sure there's real careers on the other side when these students come out.
All right. And as I mentioned, we have a wonderful panel. We're going to start off the webinar with a little dive. You can go back to a little dive into the green career education, the sector overview on arts, media, and entertainment. Then we're going to have our panel speaking, and we, of course, have some time for Q&A and resource sharing at the end. All of the recordings and slides will come to you all in the next couple of days as we finalize those, but let's introduce our speakers really quickly. We have with us Allison Frenzel from the California Department of Education, Deepa Gopal, founder and CEO of Youngzine, Janel Ancayan, Senior Public Affairs Rep for the Water Replenishment District, and Alec Castellano from Turlock Video Productions, as well as being a multimedia theater teacher. And so we'll hear a little bit more from each and every one of those. We can jump on over to the next slide. And I'll throw it your way, Sarah.
Sounds great. So if you're here and you're wondering, why should I be including some environmental literacy and green career awareness into my instruction? Well, there's many reasons. For me, the world being on fire is a big one. But if you really need to go back to kind of the mandates and the standards, if we look at the anchor standards for all of the different CTE industry sectors and pathways, every single one of them includes understanding the environmental impacts of decisions and really making decisions that positively impact the world and the environment. So built into those standards is a general statement about environmental literacy. But you might be a person who's like, I don't really mind if I go off standards. The standards aren't really what does it for me. I want to know what's best for my students. Well, if we start to look at the direction the economy is going and whether or not your students will have jobs that pay life-sustaining wages moving forward in their lives, we can see that there is a big push towards the green economy when we look at the labor market data. And according to the US Department of Labor and Occupational Information Network, there's really going to be three main categories of green careers that are coming in the economy. Some are changing skill green occupations. So these are jobs that currently exist, but the types of skills that are involved are starting to change as we move towards sustainability. There's going to be higher demand green occupation. So maybe there were those sustainability jobs that were kind of niche in the past, but now as we move towards more sustainability in the economy, there's going to be higher demand for them. And then there's going to be new green occupations. So jobs that are now just becoming things because of the sustainability efforts of the economy. And we at CAELI believe that all jobs could and should be green jobs, that environmental sustainability lens should be present in every single occupation if we're going to survive and thrive on this planet. So, looking at some of the trends that we're seeing, according to the World Economic Forum Future of Job Reports from 2025, one of the main key labor market drivers is going to be that green transition. And for the first time, we're seeing environmental stewardship as one of the top 10 fastest growing skills by 2030. So, this is something that industry is saying we want people coming into the labor market understanding environmental stewardship and those environmental literacy pieces. Specifically in the arts, media, and entertainment sector, we are seeing some trends towards more sustainability. On a recent search of job openings from Indeed, there were over 44,000 different sustainability related jobs in the sector across the US. Cool thing about AI now, you can actually have it search portals like that for you and find some of those figures given key search terms. So, super fun if you haven't tried it already. And then across the board, the industry is starting to shift green. So we're seeing more sustainability managers, we're seeing major film and television companies devoting time and effort and money to going green and being more sustainable across the board. Same with the gaming industry as well. I'm not going to read all those different facts and figures to you, but feel free to dive into our sources in the slide if you want to get a little bit deeper into what the labor market is telling us about why we should be bringing environmental sustainability, environmental literacy, climate literacy, and green career awareness to our students earlier on and making them aware that they can go into these fields if that's something that they care about. And then I'm going to pop it over to our panel, and they're going to give us just a little bit of information about them and their stories and how they got to be where they are. And then we're going to have some time for Q&A and a panel discussion around really what we're seeing on the education side, on the industry side, and in those connections from school into career and how we can better support students with being more aware of green careers and starting to build those green skills that industry is saying they want. So our first panelist is Alec. Go ahead, Alec. You can introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your story. If you need me to move forward in slides, just let me know.
All right, thank you. Yeah, hello everybody. So I have been asked to come and talk to you all about my career path and how I ended up in a place where my work revolves around arts, media, and entertainment, and as well as environmental conservation. So my name is Alec Castellano. I am a graduate student at CSU San Bernardino, where I study career and technical education. I'm also a multimedia and theater teacher over at Linden High School in Northern California, and I'm a freelance videographer for a video production service that I started called Turlock Video Productions. And it's called that because I grew up in Turlock. Spent most of my life living there. So it just seemed right for me. I've always been a lifelong student of entertainment and storytelling, especially as a student getting involved with theater and making amateur videos, and then eventually turning that into a career after graduating from San Jose State University with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in radio, television, and film. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? Okay, so when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, right, as many high school kids are usually dealing with, I had to figure out what it was that I wanted to follow, right? I knew I wanted to go to college, and I knew that I loved video production, I loved acting, I loved theater, all that stuff, but I also had a huge passion for environmental justice. Um, that's just something that was held in high regard uh, in my family growing up. I've always spent a lot of time outdoors, hiking, swimming in the lakes, stuff like that. Caring for wildlife, something that I also have a big passion for. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to follow a path of environmental conservation, or I'm going to follow the path of the arts? So I kind of came down to these three realizations. I had to figure out whether or not I'm a science guru, a policy nerd, or an artist at heart, right? And I knew I wasn't a science guru because I never got good grades in my science classes. Um, so even though I really enjoyed my environmental conservation class, I knew it wasn't something that I was going to pursue professionally. As far as policy goes, I was super into legislation and politics as a high school student and in college, but it's not something I wanted to do full time. I knew for sure that I was an artist at heart, that was something that I would totally enjoy doing full time. That's why I pursued a degree in film. Okay, so I went through my formal education, I graduated, got my degree, and then I had to find an opportunity in film in the Central Valley, which is pretty scarce. I mean, right? Most of those jobs are in the Bay Area or in the Hollywood area in Southern California. So growing up in Turlock, Modesto area, which is in northern San Joaquin Valley, I had to find something, right? Because I wanted to get straight to work. I had loans to pay off. And I got lucky. I landed a job at a nonprofit called Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Stockton, where I got hired on as an assistant in their environmental justice program. And I like to think the reason why I got that job is because, one, it was an obvious that I had a big passion for environmental conservation, even though I wasn't formally trained. But they also needed someone to create social media videos for them, okay? Because they were trying to build their online presence and traffic to their different accounts. So I got hired on as a videographer, eventually made my way up to a specialist, and then up to being the coordinator of the program in San Joaquin County. And it was in that position that I was able to network with all kinds of awesome people doing the same work as me in different environmental justice nonprofits in the Central Valley, such as Little Manila Rising, California Rural Legal Association, the Farmland Working Group. There's all kinds in your community, trust me, especially in California. There's all kinds of nonprofits doing awesome work. So after building that community, and making a lot of friends in that group, I wanted to move on from the nonprofit realm. I wanted to teach, so I got into teaching, but I kept those connections and I started to do freelancing work on the side. So while I was teaching full-time at Linden High School, I was also working out these different contracts with other kind of environmental nonprofits. So I was able to make kind of like an extra, some extra revenue. It's kind of like a side hustle for me at the time. It's something that I still do. So I was lucky enough to teach film as well as make films about something that I'm super passionate about, which is environmental conservation. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Okay. So keeping busy in this kind of career path that I followed has not been hard for me. There's all kinds of nonprofits who get grant funding to advertise the programs that they do, as well as there's different local agencies and state agencies such as California Air Resources Board and your local public health agency usually get extra funds to create these kind of projects, different video productions to advertise different programs or public service announcements, stuff like that. And different educational institutions. There's always a lot of different schools funding this kind of stuff. So I just was super lucky to make those connections and to be able to work as a freelance videographer in that realm. But of course, it keeps me busy, right? I'm always having to stay on top of the next story. But the good thing is everyone has a story to tell in this realm of work. Everyone up and down California, almost everybody has been impacted by environmental injustices in some way, whether that be air pollution, water pollution. Those are the two big ones, right? But there's all kinds of different things that impact the health of our planet and impact the health of local wildlife. So those stories are always there. There's always something to make content about. And can you get the last slide for me, please? So if you're going to follow this kind of realm that I'm in right now, where you're teaching, but then you're also working as a freelancer, make sure you're sharing your work. Make sure you're taking advantage of all the different tools that are at your disposal, such as social media, creating watch parties, always bringing in those local connections, people that you meet, whether from these I remember when I was working at the Environmental Justice Program, I do sometimes 3 to 6 to 7 different Zoom calls a day. And every single time I made a connection on one of those Zoom calls, I'd add them on LinkedIn, or I'd get their email, or put down the number, something like that, because I knew that we could one day benefit each other in this career path that we're in. So make those connections, having an impressive portfolio that you can share with a potential employer at any time, and advocate for the resources you need to make those videos come to life, right? Every video is an investment. You need funding to gather supplies, camera crew, props, costumes, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And your return on that investment is usually either high traffic to your organization or recruitment in different maybe volunteering opportunities that your program is offering. So yeah, I'll stop right there. But yeah, thank you for allowing me to share that with you.
Thank you. And some really great advice for our youth as they're starting to break into these different spaces. Our next panelist is Deepa.
Thank you, Sarah, for having me on. And, as Alec shared the beginning part of his journey, I guess I'm sharing this, the second life in my, story of work. So essentially, I run a nonprofit that works with young people on climate and sustainability through environmental journalism, as well as summer programs. If you could just hop on to the next slide, Sarah, briefly. And I want to show you how we work with young people. We have a youth journalism program. And here we work with a group of writers. We take in anywhere from 6 to 8 writers, and they work with us for either a semester or 2. Most of them go on year after year. And they learn how to research the articles, how to look at the context behind the articles, and then they are actually writing on the platform. And this content is being used by teachers, in the US, but internationally as well. And, I've shared sort of a feedback from Lauren, one of our long-term writers who's been with us for almost like 6-7 years, started as a reader and then became a writer. And really what I wanted to share with this program is, what we are doing is, it's kind of going, social media is certainly important, but also to some extent, a little bit of long form, understanding the context, and then being able to parse the details. I think that's getting more and more important in a world where there's too many sound bites and one needs to process. what's going on for themselves. So that is our writer program. We have done a summer program that is on the right side picture. These are 2-week summer programs that we run at a local community college. And this is one that we ran at De Anza College in Cupertino. And the goal of the program is to build systems thinking. How do we get students to think about climate as a system, to think about sustainability and solutions as systems that involve multiple stakeholders? And so really looking at, whether you're finding solutions to mitigate climate change or adapt to climate change, it is all going to require a lot of different people, careers, and in different spaces. As Sarah said, every career is a green career. And one of the things in this program is we bring guest speakers in different areas as well. And, just a little note from one of our participants in this program from 2022, she joined our program in the summer, really got interested, continued on as a writer. And as she was writing articles on different topics, and here I have just a topic on sustainable solutions, but on our website, there are 5 different kinds of categories of articles that students can research and write on. But anyway, in the process of writing an article on, on this field called agrovoltaics, which I didn't know about before, but it's a new space where there is farming that's being done under solar farms. So you've got these huge solar farms, and you can actually use the land under that for growing crops. And she got interested in that, reached out to a professor at Colorado State, and then did her research in her, I think between her junior and senior year. And now she's at University of Wisconsin-Madison pursuing her bachelor's in environmental science and political science because she wants to make an impact. So this is the kind of real-world impact that we've had with the program. And we also do one-off events at libraries, and that is a little picture there. So kind of going back to the previous slide, Sarah. Yes, so I want to share a little bit about my journey. I started in a career in technology, worked in multiple high-tech companies in the Silicon Valley, working on hardware that goes into graphics chips and multimedia chips, and then routers. I spent the last decade at Cisco. But I'd say that, Youngzine is a second calling. And so the way it came about was probably a couple of reasons. One was certainly a need I felt for my own son while I was raising him. But also during the course of my work, I would volunteer at, in educational organizations and early intervention programs, or working on, with youth who are, have different abilities and so on. So these kinds of opportunities, I kind of grew my passion for education and working with youth. And then, of course, I had my background in science and an interest in journalism from a very young age. I grew up in India. I grew up in 3 countries. I grew up in India. And I remember in the 70s and 80s, my grandfather would insist on reading a newspaper. He would just say, if you want to make a difference in the world, you got to know what's happening in the world. And so literally it'd be like a pop quiz at the end of the day. He would say, did you read that article? And then I would have to, just to have a discussion. So that was his intent. I did my high school in the Middle East, in Kuwait, which was a big shift from India. So it gave me a different perspective there. And then I came here for my master's decades ago. So I think really what Youngzine brings together is this combination of my interest in science, journalism, the power of journalism to make an impact, the passion for education, and then, of course, my own upbringing as well. So Youngzine started as a broad news platform for middle school students. And in 2019, we were at the youth climate protests. We were interviewing young people there. And that's when we saw their passion. We saw the thirst for, their understanding what's happening, something that they were not getting in their classrooms, just because, our school systems are structured with so much pressure on teachers already. So these kids are there, they recognize that change has to come, and they are at the forefront of bringing about change. And, that kind of got us thinking about, well, we need to pivot to climate and sustainability as our focus. And that's what happened. We worked on some core content with a scientist at Stanford who helped us develop the climate core content. And then we launched the platform in 2021. And, we're in the process of redesigning and relaunching the site. Currently, I'm also pursuing an executive master's in public policy at Columbia. And again, the reason that drives me is that my master's concentration is sustainability. And, it is all about how do we our kids are interested that every career has an opportunity to be green, and how do we really introduce these careers to students, because that is what it's going to take for us to make that shift. So I said, the concern for the environment and inspiring young people to think in systems is what led me down this path. If you could just skip over to 2 slides after, I want to share what is an iceberg model for journalism. Every day we're seeing journalists grappling with issues, and, we're seeing extreme weather events and, changes to, whether it's fishing communities and, as our oceans warm or as the ice melts, we're seeing changes in every part of the world. And really, I think what is important, even as, we're presenting what's at the tip of the iceberg, is what lies underneath. What are, the systems and structures in place? What are some of the policies that have gotten us to where we are? And what are some mental models that really need to change? So I believe that, environmental journalism and really, bringing that to people in a way that they can understand the different aspects of it and why things are important, so that we can reach across the aisle. I think ultimately that is most important, is, bridging the differences so that we move together, forward. And so with that, you're just going back 2 slides. I think that is really what I hope to build with young people. And we're doing that through our programs on Youngzine. And I'm hoping with this master's that I'm doing that hopefully that will lead down certain pathways as well. And I guess I just had a little poem there that just, a first line of that poem that has inspired me from decades ago. It's an Old English poem, which really says, no man is an island. Each is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And it sort of concludes with, send not, ask not for whom the bells toll, it tolls for thee. It says that when disasters happen, when things happen, we are all impacted. And so that's really, a small but powerful poem that has inspired my journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. Definitely that blending of, art and journalism is a great way to try to reach across the aisle and change hearts and minds. And next is Janel, really showing us how we can, bring the arts and arts, media, and entertainment into other industries as well. If you can't find a job as a youth in, the proper industry, there's ways to continue to do your passions outside of, film or music or television. So Janel, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah, and really wonderful quote to end on, Deepa. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janel Ancayan, and I'm a Senior Public Affairs Representative at the Water Replenishment District. My background is in environmental education, and really why I'm here today is because I was inspired by one of my high school teachers that taught me AP Environmental Sciences and made me feel like I could positively impact our natural environment. So I'm hoping that everyone here feels the same way and hopefully impacts just 1 or 2 students in a positive manner similarly. So for background context, I work for the Water Replenishment District. So we are a special government district that protects and manages the groundwater for Southern LA County. Now we serve about 43 cities, and most of our community members don't really know that nearly 50% of their water comes from underground. In fact, I'm willing to bet that most of the people on this call don't really think about where our water comes from, just that it's there when we need to shower, cook our food, or even flush the toilet. So my role in the External Affairs Department is to raise awareness on where that water comes from and hopefully inspire the next generation of students that want to work for the water industry. And the water industry is a really, I like to call it a zombie-proof industry, because no matter what happens during COVID, during any like economic downfalls, people will still and always need water. So it's a really stable and fulfilling career pathway where you can positively impact your community. Despite all of that, the water industry is kind of in a we're facing what's called the silver tsunami, which means that a lot of the folks, especially in operations, are actually going to retire by the turn of the decade, and they're taking their years of experience with them, which is kind of threatening this essential service that we provide. And it's not just in operations, it's in every field across the water industry. We still need folks in admin and human resources, and specifically in arts, media, and entertainment, like what we're talking about here. So within our external affairs department, we work with a lot of folks that help us produce promotional videos, for example. We work with a lot of graphic designers. We have our own social media specialists also. So people don't realize that there's more than just engineering jobs in water, but we need career pathways in arts, media, and entertainment to help get the word out and get a engaged group or engaged members of the public so that we can advance our programs and continue protecting the water. So one of the ways that we start to raise awareness on this on the next page is that WRD hosts an annual student art contest. So just this year was our 10th annual student art contest, where students from our service area create pieces of art that talk about either water conservation or raise awareness on groundwater. And then at the end of the contest, we do actually compile a student art calendar. We call it our water awareness calendar, that's distributed mostly around Southern California, but possibly across the entire state and across the general area. But the goal is to make sure that we inspire our communities to protect this most precious resource. And I think this is a really good way that we can get students as young as kindergarten to start thinking about how water and nature and art really intersect, and start thinking about how we can be sustainable, but we can also be creative at the same time. So I just love talking about water, and I'm excited to bring this into the conversation. And I'll just end with the fact that water is life, and I hope that you all just continue to think and appreciate our water resources a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. And finally, we're very lucky to have the arts, media, and entertainment sector lead from the CDE here with us today, Allison.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I love hearing everybody's stories, so I wanted to acknowledge the other panelists for sharing. I'm honored to be here. My name is Allison Frenzel. I'm the Arts, Media, and Entertainment Industry Sector Lead at the California Department of Education. I'm also the Youth Apprenticeship Lead, and I'm also co-leading the Career Technical Education Model Curriculum Standards Update Project currently as we speak. So it's a really exciting time to start thinking about how we can more mindfully integrate sustainability into the state standards for career ed. So I liked that you started with that conversation, Sarah. I think that's timely. So in my current role, I support students and teachers and programs in the development of high quality CTE pathways for the sector, and that lead to work. And most recently, we have launched an apprenticeship initiative as part of something called the High Road Training Partnership, which is a initiative from our partner agency, the California Workforce Development Board. And the High Road Training Partnership model is really about centering both equity and climate in workforce. And it really was a moment when I was working on this project with our partners, where I realized we don't actually think intentionally about the integration of environment in the workforce development space for the sector, generally speaking, right? So I had no pathways that were environmentally focused for the sector. And we had to really honestly, it was an afterthought when we were developing this grant narrative for the Higher Training Partnership. It was like, okay, well, we have the workforce piece figured out. We know that there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion necessity in the industry, but like the climate piece is just, we'll just throw something in there, right? And we did some preliminary research and found the Sustainable Production Alliance and realized that there's a lot of work. And it was kind of in the early iterations of that group before they were actually formalized into an organization. So you know, it was interesting to see that there was work already being done and that we began to research that work. My background is I taught high school for 15 years. I co-founded a California Partnership Academy in Sonoma County, California, in Windsor, at Windsor High School. I started my career in alternative education and taught art and English. English was the subject that I have my secondary credential in. And in 2008, I think it actually 2008, I moved over from the alternative education high school to the contemporary high school to launch a new partnership academy, which was around interdisciplinary and project-based learning for production and managerial and performing artists. And so within that work, you know, when we were doing the prep for this panel, I was like, oh, I actually do have a few projects that I've worked on in the performing arts space that really integrate sustainability principles and mindfully move forward the necessity for climate justice through the arts. So I worked with a group called Fog Beast out of San Francisco. Fog Beast is a modern dance company led by Melesio Estrella, who is highly active in the climate and environmental justice space. And so they came in and helped the students develop an original production called These Lines Are Living. And I actually should have, after the fact, should have put some slides in and images from that production, where the students had to design a set that was made up of an iceberg that started really large from the beginning of the show. And then we worked with our STEM program to develop a robotic mechanism that allowed that set piece to kind of melt and change and morph throughout throughout the production. We had also collaborated with our multimedia program to develop a set of images that really show the impact of climate change on the world, global impact. So I appreciate, you know, Alec's perspective too, that, you know, you can tell the story of climate justice through the arts, even through dance. That project 2 years later, right before COVID, was a partnership with the Marin Headlands, also called These Lines Are Living. It was a research partnership with a climate scientist from Lawrence Livermore Labs that was about looking at the ocean changes. And so we actually had worked on a whole site specific dance piece with my dance company to help tell that story. And then COVID hit, so it was never actually realized, but we did a lot of rehearsals there in the Marin Headlands. So, you know, my work has intersected with environmental sustainability, and I didn't actually even really think about it until we had joined, this panel came about. So those are some examples of how I feel like I have connected with the topic through my own art, which is dance. And I taught dance and English for 15 years before I moved to the state. Currently, we're working very intentionally on building pathways for sustainability coordination and other occupations in our apprenticeship initiative. So the BRIC Foundation, who actually led me to this group, is working diligently to incorporate sustainability occupations into their statewide registered apprenticeship initiative. And you can go to the next slide. You can talk a little bit about what the Higher Training Partnership has led to and what that and the apprenticeship initiative looks like. So in my work at this state, we really it's about building opportunities and bridging school and work, right? And there's so many, it's a tough industry right now, especially in Southern California, where things have drastically slowed down in the film production space specifically. And we're hoping that the new tax credit initiative will will help that and help bring production back to California. But we really started to look at, oh, and then of course, like with generative AI coming into the picture, which is the least environmentally conscious and sustainable tool imaginable. And it had also started to really impact entry-level positions where we had developed apprenticeship pathways. For instance, in the gaming industry, AI has really impacted the opportunities for youth who are just trying to get their foot in the door in entry-level work, especially non-union industries and entertainment. And generative AI specifically, which has a very significant environmental footprint, has, you know, been built off of the machine learning of artists' work that had trained the AI tools. So there's just been a lot of change since we started this work, and a lot of lawsuits pending and things like that. So instead of really focusing on the pre-development pipeline that we started, concept art and character art and background art, and we were really building pipelines for artists into entertainment, we started looking at the ecosystem and where there will always be work, which is in production management, production coordination, and there's still work for artists, don't get me wrong. It's just a little trickier now than it was 5 years ago to find those employers willing to hire at an entry level. So ultimately, through the High Road Training Partnership and the work of the Brick Foundation, my partners, we established the Entertainment Equity Alliance. And if you go to entertainmentequityalliance.org, maybe you can drop that in the chat. Elizabeth, I see that you're like actively doing that. That's really helpful. We built a hub that is for workforce development and entertainment, and it pulls together nonprofits that are working in this space. And we built a page specifically designed to highlight the nonprofits working around sustainability and entertainment. And so these nonprofits exist. There's a hub now on the EEA website, so you can navigate opportunities to partner with some of these nonprofits. A lot of them want to work with schools. In fact, I don't know where it is, if it's on this picture. It's not. There's a nonprofit specifically dedicated to taking wardrobe from commercial shoots that are going to go to waste and repurposing those for school programs. So there's a lot of ways to engage this nonprofit ecosystem. If you are an educator in an AME classroom and you want to start bringing in partnership to help elevate the sustainability work within the industry, there's a large ecosystem of nonprofits that are there to help. So ultimately, EEA, we've tried to create it as a hub that's aligned with the HRTP principles of centering equity and sustainability in workforce development. And currently we are registering occupations for sustainability coordinators, and that should be good to go hopefully in the next month or so. So so I think that's about what I have right here in terms of an intro and an overview. But I think we're ready to move on to the next part. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. So now we have some time to have a panel discussion with our panelists, a little bit of Q&A. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat or raise your hand and unmute. But we're going to kick it over to Liz to start off with a couple intro questions for our panel.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone. Wow, that was really helpful and very helpful framing so we can understand how all these pieces are going to fit together. It does feel like we're putting together a big jigsaw puzzle. I love it. So as you saw, I dropped in the chat, the Green Building Council is actively getting requests from industry partners to have staff and get people trained in different sustainability goals. So I think I'd like to start with a question for Alec. Are you noticing in the beginning of your career pathway, were there certain certifications or knowledge or education that you needed or that you're noticing other students should get?
Yeah, for sure. I would say number one is probably the um, the BA degree or some kind of bachelor's degree, just because I guess in a way that kind of legitimizes you for for an entry role at like a nonprofit or an agency or something like that. Kind of just shows that you've been formally trained. Outside of that, I think that um, building up a resume of volunteer experiences is super helpful as well. And there's all kinds of different volunteer experiences out there um, for high school students and for young adults. Um, there's different certificates, right? And like I mentioned earlier, building a portfolio. Every single time you go out and volunteer, take that picture with your group, shine your smile and put it on your portfolio. Rack those up, and it just kind of gives those employers something physical to look at and show that, say, like, hey, I have worked in this field before. I kind of do know what I'm doing, even if it's just volunteer work.
Hmm. Thank you. That's very helpful. And I really loved the point you made earlier about storytelling. I think we all made a really important note to hit on that. That I was listening to a podcast earlier today with Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about how most scientists are somewhere on the spectrum and have trouble articulating what's happening inside their head. So we need storytellers to tell the story of climate change. It's very important. Well, on that note, I'd like to transition to a question back for Allison Frenzel. Um, do you recommend any entry points for students that are interested in getting into sustainability in the arts, media, and entertainment pathway that are a bit non-traditional? Maybe they don't want to go the traditional route of the four-year university.
Yeah, well, the work that we're doing in the apprenticeship space is an alternative. I mean, we say it's a yes and to four-year universities, but it is also an alternative for students who want to experience more paid on the job learning than they would get in a classroom exclusive environment in colleges. So it is a combination of paid on the job training and class related and supplemental classroom instruction. And often the RSI, as we call it, is offered by the community college system because it's free. So I think there are pathways for students that want to move into this space, but they're very newly being developed. There is a ton of resources on the EEA website that you can look into that would probably best direct you to who in the space is doing that work, developing those pathways, and like the Green Film School, I think it is called, is one that has a whole curriculum. So I think from an educator perspective, a lot of the time students don't know that these jobs even exist. And so it's kind of on the educator's plate to expose them to the different resources, curriculum that will in fact elevate the sustainability jobs within entertainment. And then hopefully by the time our apprenticeship has been approved by the state, there will be apprenticeship pathways, which are alternative to four-year degree programs. So we're working on it is the bottom line. And I see a question in the are we doing chat simultaneously, or are we just like follow-up questions? Or
Yeah, there's actually two that would probably be beneficial for you to answer, Allison. One being around green skills. Is there any particular ones that you think are recommended for young people to develop, and how can they develop those skills? And then the second question is a little more specific to Laguna Niguel area. If you know of any particular industry partners in film documentary or environmental science who can support a PBL project at their middle school for Tracy.
okay, so sorry, I was looking up, let me put this in the chat. So this is on the EEA website, but this is what I was referring to as far as a great curriculum that has been made by the entertainment industry, specifically around sustainable production. I also forgot to highlight this, but I think it's really important to note some of the work being done in the live entertainment space, and specifically I don't know if the audience has heard or knows anything about it, but Billie Eilish, her last tour, I think it was her last tour, 2024, called Hit Me Hard and Soft, was the most environmentally sustainable tour in concert history, which is saying a lot. And so there were like some key innovations there around carbon reduction strategies, eco action villages, plant-based food initiatives, elimination of single-use plastics, things like that. So just thinking like holistically, these are transferable type skills, but live entertainment is one of the spaces where there's actually quite a bit of opportunity in sustainability, especially in the concert and festival space. So I did want to highlight that. In terms of nonprofits that would assist students to acquire, blah, 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 that is not a question for me. So ultimately, career technical education funding is like, I live in the CTE space, and we actually provide a significant amount of funding to schools to purchase industry standard equipment, software certifications, things like that. I don't know of any. There are actually, you know what, on the EEA sustainability page, there are some different organizations like EcoSet, which does collect equipment from studios and recycles. So I highly recommend reaching out to some of those and seeing what kinds of opportunities they have. I just personally don't know of them really. And what else is in here?
I think Allison, I dropped some answers into a few of the questions. Definitely, I recommend reaching out to the CAELI partner portal. So that's our host today is the California Environmental Literacy Initiative. They have statewide opportunities for work-based learning and environmental partners who can help you with this. In terms of film and production partners, now that's another question, but I think we're continuing to build out that space. I think these partnerships are brand new and they're just getting started.
Yeah, and I also, do a little Google search to the audience on the Billie Eilish tour, because I think you can develop a really nice PBL unit around building a tour that is aligned with the sustainability pieces that were in place for that tour, and just at least some kind of simulated work-based learning experience for students. Because it's really comprehensive, and I feel like it's a good model to look at in terms of best practice for sustainability and live entertainment, at least. So
there are a lot of groups that will come out there and come to your school and do workshops. I just dropped one of them in the chat, but yes, definitely just do a quick Google search because they're definitely out there. So I'd like to pose a question to Deepa and to Janel. So I'd like to talk a little bit about opportunities within your two tracks that are available to students right now. So let's start with Deepa. What opportunities would you have available for students?
As I said, we are a journalism platform. So if there are young people who are interested in particular topics around sustainability, whether it's fast fashion or in any other issues in the community, this is a great opportunity for them to, either create an article or a a small video clip about, a minute to two that showcases the issue that would be happy to showcase on our platform. We also work with youth on these programs, as I mentioned, which are sort of a writing program, journalism program that is about 3 months long. And during the course of the program, we actually mentor them, and they learn how to take topics and then how to research, look for credible sources, and then get those articles published on the site. And this is a smaller group. So I'd say that we have a core group of writers. And so if there are any writers who are interested, or anybody who's interested in small multimedia productions that they would like to share on some topic that is relevant to the community, maybe it is climate justice, we'd be happy to showcase that on our platform. And in terms of just writers, I just want to share that, those who join our program have an opportunity to work with a cohort that is very diverse. It is not just across the US, but it's also international. In fact, I just got a request from a writer from the Philippines a rising junior who wants to write for us. So again, this is an opportunity to, again, learn about different perspectives as well. And these writers are taking local issues and showcasing as well, besides writing on topics that we suggest. The summer programs are also a great opportunity. Those are 2-week-long programs. Currently, this summer, it's on pause because of the program that I'm doing in New York. But if there are schools that are interested in the program, we'd be happy to work with them. And again, as I said, one of the writers and attendees for the program, in fact, spoke about the project, the offshore wind farms of Morro Bay, and then looked at the impact that it happens on, that's happening on the local community, as well as the native tribes that live there. And he wrote a series of articles on our site following that. So again, these are all opportunities for, even if they don't join the program directly, there are opportunities to research topics in the community and have that be showcased on our platform.
Awesome, thank you. And I did drop your website into the chat. Is that the best way for
yes
to get in touch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And then Janelle, I'd like to, I went and did a workshop yesterday in Long Beach, and it was an internship program for students interested in facilities and operations and maintenance. So they were from the Long Beach Unified School District coming to the district office facilities department for a summer internship. It was very interesting, and I'd never seen anything quite like that before. Do you know if the Water Replenishment District has any sort of internships or programs open to young folks?
Yeah, of course. One of the things that we do is we have a really competitive college internship program, actually. And we have we can host student interns from all different departments. So we typically will have we currently have 3 external affairs interns that we're hosting here, and they're all recent or current university students. But we'll also have student interns in our engineering and operations, admin and finance as well. So those are definitely opportunities that are available for us in the Water Replenishment District, but also across many water districts within the state of California. I do recognize that a lot of the attendees here are from across the state of California, so I definitely recommend looking up your local water agency and who actually provides you your water, because I can 95% guarantee you that they'll either have an internship program available to your students. But the big thing that we're working on for now is awareness of careers in the water industry, because even though water touches everyone, people don't really think about where that's coming from. So oftentimes these water agencies, and some are on this line right now, are open to partnering with your school for attendance at STEAM fairs and career fairs. But the main thing that I wanted to highlight is also tours of our local water facilities. I think it's really special to be able to go behind the scenes and see the facilities that clean our water or that recycle water. And then just by being there, you become exposed to all of these different career pathways within the water industry. Specifically, our main facility is called the Albert Robles Center for Water Recycling and Environmental Learning. And we actually have 40 exhibits that were custom built by the same company that made Harry Potter Studios in the United Kingdom, or something like that. So it's a very creative space that we're operating in, and we had to actually manually do a lot of coding of that. But also, like what Alec was focusing on, is the storytelling of why it's so important to protect our water resources and what WRD does. So WRD is just one aspect of that across the state of California, but there's also so many different other water agencies that we partner with, that we work with, that are all fighting for the same goal. The other thing that I wanted to explore, that I'm looking to explore currently, is partnerships with our local media career academies within high school. Or I know that some middle schools are also looking at developing media career academies, but like I mentioned, We have a pretty comprehensive social media presence. We develop outreach materials and flyers all the time. We make videos, and reels are a new thing. And really what we're what I would love to do is find a local high school that can help us develop some of those materials. And that will not only help us get the word out, but also give students experience working with a client or a customer and developing these resources that kind of build that nexus between water and sustainability and the arts also.
If I can jump in about how cool the Long Beach internships are, the students who are working on those internships are blending like facilities and data analysis with web development and design. So they're really working on updating the Long Beach sustainability website. So they're doing a lot of the photography and the curation of the website, but they're also doing some of the data analysis and research for the sustainability plans too, like figuring out the ratio of green space to built space on the different campuses for the sustainability dashboard. So it's a really cool blending of kind of the more, data-driven facilities side and the creativity and photography and web development side as well. So it's a cool internship.
And I just want to jump in as well here. Just as Janel mentioned, we are also looking to partner with high schools. We are in the process of redesigning and relaunching a new website in the fall. And our current content, which is the core, sort of climate core, as well as climate series, we've created one series on water conservation, and that's already on our site. And we're looking at doing one more on food waste. But again, an opportunities for any high school students who are interested in, creating small videos or infographics on some of these topics. Sometimes data is presented so much better through infographics and videos rather than through text. So if there's any interest, we'd definitely be interested in working with schools as well.
And Allison, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question or make a
Yeah.
comment.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but there's an organization I'm dropping in the chat right now called CAPS, Climate Action Pathways, and they are actually working on another apprenticeship initiative with more occupations, and they also offer a paid internship to their school partners and are doing what I think it was who just mentioned it. I think Janel maybe was just mentioning the fact that there's multimedia academies that are producing content that's environmental focused. So CAPS actually works with all different types of programs, the AME being one of them, and has a paid internship program for schools. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that resource as well. And they also are registering their occupations and sustainability for apprenticeship to become apprenticeship programs, and specifically youth apprenticeship programs. So there will be a chance for them to, students as young as 16 to gain these apprenticeship opportunities.
Wow, such good information here. Thank you all. I'm capturing all of this as we're going along here. So, Sarah, I just want to check in on time. We're still good to go through a few more questions. Yeah, okay, fabulous. So I want to go now to the job industry, because I think what I'm seeing now here is an overlap, right? We see that there are overlapping education and job pathways in all of these different spaces that could have similar backgrounds and training. So, for example, if someone wants to be trained in facilities and building maintenance, they could get a job on a production set. They could get a job for a school district. They could work for a water district. They could work for a city. So they could do ESG reporting. There's so many different pathways just for that one career. And as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, I almost want to see, well, we could probably pull up some of these websites that map out all the different opportunities and job boards that are out there. So, but I think I'd like to pull pull back over to Alec and see, are you noticing where is the growth happening? Are you seeing like any opportunities that the youngest folks, Gen Z and younger, who are just starting to get into this field are interested in? You mentioned a bit about social media and like, dealing with climate anxiety and environmental justice through storytelling. Can you share a bit more about the opportunities that you're seeing in that space over the next couple years?
Yeah, so I predict that the younger generations presence on the media or on social media is just going to grow and grow. We're seeing how like influencers, social media influencers, are like the new pop stars and entertainers of this generation, and their opinions really do impact the culture of young people today. And I'm starting to see um, some increase in the amount of influencers talking about environmental conservation. Um, and it really does have an impact on its followers. I mean, of course, traditional journalism is always going to be there. Long form content, especially in media and entertainment, is always going to be there. Um, but as of right now, it's just Instagram Reels and TikTok videos and Snapchat videos and stuff like that are just so influential. I think in the next 2 to 5 years, it's only going to grow until a different medium kind of overshadows that. So one thing that educators can do is kind of just invest in that kind of, grassroots journalism, I guess you would call it, um, to get more younger people involved.
That's a great point. And Janelle, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think this goes a little bit hand in hand with the earlier question on skills that students could develop to support their career pathway. But across the water industry, and I think across the board, I think we need to focus on students developing these 21st century skills, which include critical thinking and specifically media literacy. And I know we're talking about arts, media, and entertainment, but there's a lot of mis and disinformation happening out in the world that students can easily access. So I think it's also important for us to make sure students can think critically about the information that they're both producing and consuming in this time.
That's a great point. Go ahead, Deepa. Please add.
No, it's a great discussion, and really building on what Alex said, some of the kids who came for a summer program were actually introduced to the issue through social media. They saw on Instagram and TikTok about the impact of climate change, and climate anxiety is real. When you see polar bears, and many of them saw those kinds of imagery, and you kind of feel that there's nothing you can do. And that's one thing that we saw, is just helping them understand that we can all play a part, and just really through these programs where building what Janel said is building a critical thinking, seeing things in systems, seeing what it takes to move the needle. All that actually then inspires them, and at the end they actually felt more empowered, that they can actually make a difference. So I think that we need all kinds of media, and we certainly, this is where youth are on platforms like Instagram and TikTok, and that's where they're getting the information from. So I think that is certainly a great entry point, and for them to get to know about issues, and then if they're interested, there are opportunities to learn more and delve deeper into it.
Thank you. Yes, and I think this is so essential. I mean, even just in the news these past 2 weeks, the Late Show getting canceled, and there's definitely attack on free media right now. And I think this is going to cause a wave of passion in young people in the same way that talking about climate on TikTok and other social media platforms did inspire a whole wave of students to go into this field. And AIM is definitely the most popular pathway. So how can we tap into that existing passion and put it into the right place? I love that we're having this talk today. I want to check in to see if there were any questions that popped up in the chat while I was talking. Nothing yet. Okay. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the potential for high paying and upward mobility jobs, right? We're talking a lot about, oh, sorry, Eugenie, did you have a question?
Oh, it was a little bit, well, that sounds like a good topic, but I was kind of curious education-wise, like with the Department of Education, where we're going with incorporating more of, with career education into standards and the classroom in general, so that more students get access to learning about careers, about climate or green oriented careers, how they can incorporate it, because it seems like there's a kind of a lack of, I don't know, I talk to a lot of students and I don't know that they always think like I could have my job be green, like I could incorporate it into my job. They kind of have a stereotypical niche that they think green jobs means. And so I'm just wondering where we're going with education in the state of California on incorporating this into standards or our curriculum so more students are reached. I don't know, I guess that's a Department of Education question.
Yeah, I'll answer that. So it kind of depends on it's a very broad question. So there's career technical education, which is the space that I work in, and that's the career and college transition division. And then there's the academic side of education, which is, all your content, other content subject areas, and they all have state standards. There's literacy standards, there's English, language, art, science, and whatnot. In the career technical education side, there is a significant number of, I think it was, sorry, who spoke about this? Sarah. I think it was Sarah who mentioned it early on, that every single career technical education sector has to incorporate what they were called the anchor standards, and there is sustainability built into the anchor standards as part of the career readiness practices that are foundational to all career tech ed. It's really, so the state puts out guidance in the form of standards. It is not, we don't mandate the teaching of this guidance. They, at least in the career tech ed space, certain grants do require that your curriculum is aligned to these standards, but it's really up to locals on what programs that they choose to implement in their school districts. So the state doesn't mandate programs, it's a local control state, which means it's your local school districts that make those decisions on what's offered to students in your local regions. So the best thing that I think community members can do with their local school districts is express the desire and need to see more of these programs available to students if they're not currently available. I will say that one of our smallest enrolled industry sectors is what I'm going to butcher what it's called right now. It's something like utilities, climate, something. And it's very under enrolled. I don't have it in my head. We're going to be changing the CTE names of sectors very soon. So the green career pathways actually will fall into a new cluster when this rolls out. That is focused on natural resources, energy, and utilities. So ultimately, again, it's up to your locals to determine what's offered to schools. The state in California does not mandate any programs being offered, and I highly recommend you reach out to those local districts to ask that question, because it's a great question.
And just a interesting aside, as part of the 10 Strands Data Initiative, we recently had a group of interns go through every high school's course catalogs and see which pathways they have and whether or not they saw any evidence of sustainability or green careers in those course descriptions. We are still validating that data, but it should be coming out probably around November or December. And so just a way to see, like, across the state, across all the pathways, like, where are we seeing schools actually put sustainability and green careers into their course descriptions, and where are there some areas for growth? Are there particular sectors leading the way? So keep an eye out for that data. We are in the process of making sure that it is as accurate as possible.
Thank you. Very good questions. This is really expanding the way I think about how all these programs connect. So, okay, so we've been talking a lot about students and entry level and how we get our feet in the door and what sort of training do we need and all of our traditional and non-traditional pathways. But we live in a very expensive state, and teenagers, as you I'm sure have met, are attracted to money. And so, and there is often a perception that green jobs or sustainability jobs are not well paid. So, I think I'd like to direct this question again. So let's start with Deepa. How, how can we tell the story better of the career trajectory and that these are upward moving careers? I've been thinking about like, could there be like a Forbes 30 under 30 most sustainable CEOs or something like that? How do we get that into the spotlight?
That's a great question, Liz. And I think we certainly do need to empower and inspire youth about green careers. When you think about, I'm here doing a program at Columbia, and in sustainability, there's just so many areas, whether it's accounting. There's now this whole idea of sustainable accounting. How do you start looking at carbon credits, and what do companies like Apple and others have to do to show that they are meeting their sustainability targets? So there are so many different areas that are coming up that are just, I guess they're just coming up, they're just blossoming. And so there isn't, as much information as yet, but I do think that it'd be great to have, some way of communicating what are the new careers that are coming up. And that could be certainly what you said, which is highlighting people who are in these spaces and making changes in traditional companies, because I think every company in all jobs in those companies are looking to move towards green. We had somebody from a Silicon Valley company who spoke to one of our, to a student cohort in the summer 2023 program, who talked about how she is looking at sustainability in the manufacturing sector. And, what is that going to look like? And so, we've had parents come to us at school booths and ask us about how can we link computer science to sustainability? How can we link chemistry to sustainability if kids are interested in these areas? And again, that is something that we should start making those connections on, the traditional subjects and what does sustainability look like in them, and perhaps, again, inspire kids through these. Just to really just spread the word that every subject has a sustainability angle to it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very important point. That's when I do career fairs now, it's definitely all jobs are green jobs. Go ahead, Eugenie.
Yeah, I just really want to emphasize that. I've been doing this internship where students are profiling career opportunities, and they've really picked, things that they want to do, like engineering, and they're seeing how they can incorporate climate solutions in their career. And so I think, there are some people that want to go directly into a field that really addresses a specific climate issue, but I think, conceptualizing careers that you want to pursue, and then how do you incorporate addressing sustainability or climate solutions into your career? And that maybe that kind of looking at that way of thinking about it. And also, I just want to add that I think like climate literacy education and career education could go nicely hand in hand because we need climate literacy in general to understand these concepts, and then how do you apply it to career problems, or like climate problems, which we have many of.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely have to get the standards across the board in all sectors and all ages in terms of language and how we're talking about these issues. Well, I also wanted to point out the resource that Janelle dropped in the chat with the videos on career pathways. Janelle, did you want to share anything about those videos? They seem very cool.
Yeah, so as you all know, it's really hard to get the word out about these different career pathways. And I think that we're competing against like science or against space or astronaut or doctor and all of these traditional career pathways, but there's a lot of green career pathways and specifically within water also that we want students to start thinking about. So we have a number of videos that we've developed throughout the years that really highlight and profile the diverse careers that are available within the water industry. Anything from a water treatment plant operator to a senior government affairs representative to someone even working in GIS, which we kind of talked about within the chat box also. And it talks about the real things that students want to think about, the real things that we want students to think about when choosing a career, which is like, what does your day-to-day actually look like? What do you like about your job and what do you not like about your job? And so I think these are just great resources for students to almost speed date these different career pathways and see what interests them and what they can explore further. So we have that online as a resource, and I think there are a lot of different videos online and resources for students to further explore those pathways.
You are 100% correct, and I think that is a great transition to maybe go to our resource slides. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I was just about to say it's like a perfect transition, and I'll drop the slides back in the chat as well. But we did curate a few different resources and ways that you can get involved or stay involved if this is an interesting topic to you and you would like some more support in this space. So the first is our call to action, Educating for a Green Economy, which was developed by CAELI last year. It really dives deep into some of the research, some of the barriers, and some of the recommendations for bringing green career education to scale across all of the different pathways, and also includes some promising practice profiles, including CAPS, which was dropped in the chat and mentioned by Allison as a great way to bring some green career education into your classrooms. Also, if you would like to be part of this, CAELI is welcoming folks to come and join. We will be continuing this webinar series as part of the CAELI webinar series in 25-26. And we have quarterly meetings that involve updates from the state, grants, information, all sorts of different resources and learnings around environmental literacy and education. And then I will kick it to Janelle, since this is one of the resources that you added.
Yeah, this is just the page that I was mentioning where we talk a little bit about the schools that you could attend if you want to work in water, as well as we actually have a lesson plan on there for some teachers, the videos I mentioned, and just recently we also added some resources for students to actually build out their resume and how to actually prepare for an interview, because choosing your career is one thing, and then actually applying for jobs and securing that is the second part of it. So we're hoping to look at this holistically and just serve students as much as possible.
And we also, as a team, started to curate some different resources that might be helpful to you. So please feel free to take some time and go through. We might be adding some of the resources dropped in the chat to these slides as well. Any of these resources that our team wants to highlight for folks that they think they'd be very interested in?
Well, I think we dropped a lot of these in the chat. I know we haven't mentioned it yet, but so this one on the bottom here, spec, US Green Building Council developed that in collaboration with Green Sparks Group, which is a sustainability consulting group that works with production companies. So that is geared for anyone in film, TV, music, entertainment, sports. And I think that's just going to be the first iteration. So they're going to develop an energy model, a food model, a materials model. So this is really going to ramp up over the next couple years. And the fact that the big players like Disney and Amazon are, and let me preface this by saying we didn't come to them. They're coming to us. So if these companies are coming to us and saying, we want this, that means they see the trajectory of where the economy is going and they want to get ahead of the curve. So I'm just, I want our students to also be ahead of the curve as well. And then we'll set the standard and then maybe the rest of the country will follow.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for attending. Thank you to our panelists. We will be sending out the recording as well as the slides with resources. They can also be found on the CAELI page. And if you're interested in energy, environment, and utilities, that was our last webinar. It is up on the CAELI page as well. And thank you for being here and being committed to bringing green career awareness to the youth in California.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.